Microsoft Access is probably the one application in the Microsoft Office suite that students are the most unfamiliar with or don't know about. So I would strongly encourage you in your textbook to read over the section of Chapter 1 in Access so that you understand what is going on. Now, the other thing that you can do is there is a free website that has tutorials that we use in our face-to-face classes here at Mitchell Tech, and it's called gcflearnfree.org. Again, that's gcflearnfree.org. And when you go to this website, you'll see that this Microsoft Office 2016 link shows up. You click on the box, and then from this box, it's going to load the different applications. And so we want to choose the icon for Access. So Access has a paper beside it and then some spindles which stand for your database storage. So you click on Access 2016 and then it's going to take you to a list of tutorials so that you can understand what these applications are and what they're about. I believe I maybe showed this to you at the beginning of the semester, but it's really important now. So I could click on Introduction to Databases and you can close the sidebar if you want, but it's going to give you a little video. If you're unsure what a database is, it's going to give you some explanation. Basically, a database is a storage container. So when you create tables, you have to create tables in a database to store the information. A table can only be about one subject. So you'll notice here they give you a couple of lists, like one about people and one about cookies. And then within that, you can make a lot of different tables worth of information to store your data in. In a table, the lines that run horizontal, the rows, are called records. So record 1 about Dad. That's all of Dad's information. Record 2 is about Aunt Ada. That's all of her information. So a record is all of the information about a person, place, thing, or idea. Then up here, you have the columns. The columns in a table are called fields. And again, the field can only be one piece of information. So ID, name. Name should even be split out further into first name and last name, because if you're going to sort on that data, you need to have that separated. Cell phone number, birth date, nut allergy. You could have a table called contact information that would have fields like first name, last name, address, city, state, zip code, email, phone number, etc. So you use a database to be able to store the information. It's a relational database. So that means you relate data from one table into data in another table. What we want to focus on today is just simply how to work with a database. So I'm going to go back and it says Introductions to Objects. So this is going to explain to you that we have 4 objects. We work with tables, forms, queries, and reports. But the first thing we have to do is create the table. So again, it's going to explain to you that the rows are the record information, the columns are the field information. And so what we have to do is we have to set these up so that we can enter data into these fields. And so if you go to the Getting Started, it's going to show you your background pane and your navigation areas, to be able to work with Access, what you're going to find on the ribbon, etc. So what I want to do is take you into the database. If you look in my MTI, it says that there's the link for GCF Learn Free right in your assignment link, that you need to download 2 things. One is the database that says ACCDB, and then the other is the information on the project. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the database. It's called Griffin, and it already has a table in it, which is kind of nice, and it's already populated with some data. So the first thing that your instruction sheet tells you to do, it's showing you the tables you're going to create and the fields that you're going to put in those tables. So the employees table is already created. What you're going to do now, assessment 1, it says you're going to open Griffin, you're going to double click on the table, and you're going to already delete a record. And you're like, oh my gosh, how do I delete a record? Well, all you have to do is we have to find Scott Jorgensen, click on that row, and we can right click and choose delete record. When we do that, it says, you're about to delete this. Are you absolutely sure that you want to delete this because you can't get it back once you do? And so you're going to answer yes to that you are going to delete that record. The next instruction says to you, delete the record for Leanne Taylor, employee number 1060. So you go back to that database table, you find 1060, highlight it, right click, and you're going to delete that record. The next step says, okay, now that you know how to delete records, we want you to go ahead and add these two records. So when you add the records, you go ahead and you do that in Datasheet view. So this is Datasheet view. We're going to add a record. So you can do one of two things. Down here on the navigation pane, this takes you from record 1 to record 2 to record 3, etc. The last record in the table, this little star is the Add New Record button. Also, you could go up into your, oh, the insert's not there. So we'll just go to Insert New Record, and then we're going to insert the record that it asks us to. So it says we need to enter 1010 Harrington Tyler. So you can go back to the database, 1010 Harrington Tyler. And if you forgot the rest of it and you close the database, you're like, oh no, now all that information is totally and completely lost. Well, it's not. If I open up Griffin, that record's going to be there. It's going to be out of order in the employees table, but it's there because it's automatically sorting on the employee ID. So the nice thing to know about entering records is that when you enter them, they remain there no matter what. So now I could go back in and I could add his birth date of 9/7/1979. 9, I don't remember what it is. I'm just going to make up some information and we'll put some information in here. And then his hire date, we'll pull the hire date. The hire date was 10/1/2013. Oops, 13. And then if you have to add a new record, you can go ahead and insert a new record again down here at the bottom. So that's how you add your records. Then it says go ahead and close that employees table. And then you think, oh my gosh, the table has a department ID field. So you're going to have to go and we're going to have to insert a new field into the table. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to Design View. So this is Datasheet View. A database always opens in Datasheet View. We're going to click on Design View. We need to add a field in here. So it tells us that the field that we're going to add is called Department ID, and it needs to be a field size of 2 characters because it's just department abbreviations. And so it's going to say, hey, some data might be lost if you do this. Are you sure you want to do this? And yes, we do. So we're going to go in here. And does it tell us where to put that field? Employees table includes department field. Open the employees table, insert the new field in the employees table, and name it department ID. So we're just going to add it at the end. So DEPT ID, and it's a short text field, and it's supposed to be 2 characters. So then when we click on Datasheet View or the X, it's going to changes. Yes. So now when we go into the employees table, now we have to go to this field and we have to enter that information from this sheet. So we're going to notice 1001 is HR. So he's HR. And then we have to go down and find out that 1002 is RD. And the next one is IT. So you just keep entering that information from this pink table all the way through. Once that's in there, it wants you to move a field. So you want department ID between birth date and annual salary. So to move a field, we have to go back to Design View. We're going to move. We're going to get the black arrow. We're going to left click. Whoops, sorry. Need the white arrow. We're going to left click and drag between birth date and annual salary. So it moves that field. You can move them however you want. You just need the white arrow, find the black thick line. When you move it, it says, hey, you just changed the layout of my table. Yes, I did. So now we can see that it actually moved those fields. The one thing that you're going to notice is that some of this stuff you can't read. So like we did in Access or Excel, get the black drop-down arrow, select all those fields and double click on a boundary so that you can read everything in that field, because that's really important. And that's what that next step in here asks you to do. It says automatically adjust column widths in the columns. Then you can display this in print preview and change your margin top to 1.5. So we're going to go to File and Print. We're going to look at Print Preview. So this is how it's going to look when it's printed. Well, we need to change our margins. So I'm going to go to Margins, and I'm going to go to Custom, and then I'm going to change it to whatever it tells me to change it to. I believe it said 1.5 and 1.25. Oh, my box isn't showing up because I'm in projection mode, but you can go ahead and change it from there. Then the next thing it's going to ask you to do is to create a new table and populate it with data. And then it's going to have you change some different field sizes. So when you go to create a new table in a database, all you have to simply do is go to Create, and you want to go to Table Design. And now I can start with my first field. So when you go back to your instructions, it says that in Assessment 2, here are the fields that you're going to create. So you're going to create Department ID and Department. So that's not too tough to do. You just go back here and you do Department ID. And remember that we set it at a data type of a data size of 2. And then the other one was Department. And it's a short text, and it didn't give us a field size on that. You could set it for like, I don't know, 35 maybe. And then you're going to go back to design. You have to save the table and give it a name. And it calls it Departments. Now you can go ahead and enter the information, except that field is still showing up for me here. Just a second. There we go. Now we're going to delete it. Now it's gone. Okay, so now you just enter your data. So if you had HR, and under department it's called Human Resources, and the next one is, I don't know, IT, and whatever it's called, make sure that you adjust your column widths for that particular table. And then when you get into Assessment 3, you're creating yet a third table with some different data types. So when I talk about data types, we have short text, but from the drop down you can pick long text, number, date, time, currency, yes, no, etc. And then when you set field sizes, you just go down here to field size and you set it for whatever it is. By default it's 255. But it's going to ask you to make. And then when you get to step 4, you're going to sort the data. And so the sorting of the data is just like we did in Microsoft Excel. If I want to go to the employees table and I want to sort this data based on birth date, I can click on birth date. Here's my filter. If I want to go ahead and sort that, maybe I'm going to sort it ascending. So now my records are sorted ascending by birth date. Or if I want to sort them descending. So those are just some quick, helpful tips with Microsoft Access. Again, if you have any questions on Microsoft Access, please don't hesitate to contact me.